Hey guys, this is Roxum087, just showing off a neat little kit over here that I think you guys can all appreciate to a certain extent. This is a Detonator Tokyo Marui HK45 SAI slide, and this is one of those slides that was sold many years ago. I think you can still buy them. I'm not entirely sure from where, but you can. I think you can still buy them from very small places in Hong Kong. If you looked online, you might have a lot of trouble finding it, just because it has SAI on it. So let's take a look at the kit now. Now, I didn't know at first that it actually came with a English instruction manual. They give you a Japanese and an English instruction manual. And they just tell you how to install everything, what goes what, so on and so forth. I can tell you right now that it does not come with a special set of sights. If you want a special set of sights, you have to purchase them separately from Detonator. Detonator does make tritium sights, or sights that look like tritium, and they made it specifically for their slides. You can purchase that separately, it just costs a lot. I never managed to find one in Hong Kong, just because in Hong Kong, we don't have too much Detonator stuff. But anyways, in the kit, they just tell you to use the original rear iron sight and front sight. And this is the part about the outer barrel. Now this outer barrel part is a little bit strange. I actually don't entirely know how to assemble it yet. I might have to. There appears to be a special part on the outer barrel that I have to pay attention to. I haven't opened this kit since the day I got it many years ago. So right here is probably the extractor and just the basic fiddly parts. I can't even tell which is the extractor and which is. Oh, this is the extractor. This is the slide lock reinforcement. This is one of those special designs. This basically means that whenever it slide locks, it doesn't just hit the slide and make it deform it. Instead, it will hit this piece. So this basically means that in the future, if something ever goes wrong, you can always get someone to remanufacture something like this, is because this is not particularly hard to replicate. That's how I see it. I don't know how you guys see it. And they give you a couple of spare O-rings, and I believe these O-rings are for the outer barrel. Because for some odd reason for I don't know why, a HK45 always has these O-rings. I don't actually know what the real reason as to why that is. I actually have no clue as to why. But anyway, but looks cool, right? Anything that looks unique, right? For airsoft is pretty cool. I don't even know the reason, but just as long as it's cool, then I'm good. So those are the markings right over there, as you can see. Very clean engraving. So these are deep engraved. This is like laser engraved. So that's the reason why you see a difference between the markings there. And the top is just normally laser engraved. The laser engraving is very consistent, as you would expect from Detonator. The gold color over here that I see is like a brilliant gold. I'm not expecting the finishing to hold up very well. I'm pretty sure it won't hold up, just because most kinds of gold finishing don't tend to hold up very well, even from Detonator. But I'll see. I'll see how it goes. And it appears that the inner structure for the inner barrel is just like as you would expect, is very far forward and only reaches about there. You can see right there, there's a bit of a depth over there. Right? Everything about the outer barrel is actually very pretty. So that's their special system. If you know what a Creation slide is, Creation makes a couple of metal slides for their Tokyo Marui HK45. This one here uses some sort of different system. I'm not entirely sure how this works yet. I'll talk about it later on, because when I assemble it, I'm going to show you guys anything that's worth noting. So it uses a special system. Gotta figure that out later on. And of course, the coolest part is the slide. Look at how beautiful this is. So as usual, Detonator finishing. So the Detonator finishing is very smooth, very nice to the touch. But it's not like super strong. Like the anodizing is not like particularly stronger than other people's. They just make sure that it's smooth. That's all. I personally like having it smooth and not having it like a rough finish, because Nova used to do that and it's very weird. I hate that. But Nova appears to have improved that to something that's smooth, just like this one. And you have the salient markings, all very consistent. Deep engraving over there. A lot of serrations. Look at how many serrations there are. And there's some sort of cut over here, like an angle cut. But for some odd reason, they don't do this area. For whatever and they also do that thing there where they don't skip this area. It must be because it gets rather thin over here. That may be the reason why. In the real steel world and probably in the airsoft world as well. Anyways, let's move on with the assembly and all that stuff now. So before I show you guys the end result, I want to first talk about this slide installation, if there's any hiccups and all that stuff. So what I can tell you is that everything fits like a glove. There was no fitment issues, except for two things. One is the front post iron sight. This is the original Tokyo Marine HK45 front post iron sight. It would not go in. No matter what, no matter how much I hammered it, it would not go in. So what I opted to do is that I filed off a little bit at the front and a little bit at the back. And now I can slide in the front post iron sight relatively easily, but it still has some tension on it, which is what I want. I will add some super glue or epoxy later on, just to make sure the front post sight actually stays still. But you know what? I might actually swap out these sights in the future, so in this case, I will not add any super glue or epoxy at the moment. So I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Moving on, we have the inner barrel and outer barrel. So the strange thing about the detonator is that usually on a stock Tokyo Marine outer barrel, normally what you have to do is that you see the screw over here. Normally you have to unscrew the screw so that this silver piece can come off. And the reason why it has to do that, in order for you to take out this out of the outer barrel, is because this silver piece locks into this hole over here. That's the reason why you have to unscrew the screw, take off the silver piece, and then you can take it out of this. But on the detonator, it uses a special locking mechanism. Notice it's very differently shaped compared to the stock Tokyo Marine one. All you have to do here is slip it in, and then close this lock. And that right there is how this stays inside here. So this system is actually quite unique. I've never seen this before. I don't have too many detonator kits, by the way. Detonator to me is still quite a rarity for me. And this locking mechanism appears to have some sort of rubber tension at the back, which is what prevents it from sloshing around. That's the reason why it actually stays still. It appears to work very well. Very easy to access your inner barrel and hop-up rubber if you wish to upgrade it. So I'm quite glad they went with this design. Later at the end of the video, I will talk about how this works and fits onto the frame. is because there's something, it actually doesn't move particularly smooth, and I'll talk about that later on. Alright guys, so this is the end product. I just stippled the grip and just made sure the slide moves smoothly, and I'll explain what I did later on. So first off, I just want to show you guys that this is done with gaps in between the stippling, and the reason why this is because the initial the HK45 does have these grip areas stippled, apparently, so that's the reason why I decided to copy the way SAI does it. Supposedly they only stippled the textured areas on the HK45 frame. That's the reason why the stippling looks separated. It does take a lot longer to do, is because you have to basically try not to overlap any of the stippling areas, which is sort of difficult. That's the reason why stippling HK45 frames take a very long time. I also stippled the trigger guard and the front of the trigger guard, as well as the index fingers on both the left and right side. So now, that's basically it for the externals. Let's now talk about what I've done to make the slide fit. So there are two things that I've done, which I will show you by taking off the slide. Still never get used to pulling this off because you need nails, and I just cut my nails. So the very first thing I did, it's nothing special. I just took rough sandpaper to remove the rough coating, the rough powdered coating on the stock Tokyo Marui chassis. The reason why I did this is because Tokyo Marui, whenever they mold their stuff, sometimes there's some inconsistencies in the way they pull their stuff out of the mold. And furthermore, sometimes their internal parts actually have some rough edges of their own. So that's the reason why I just took sandpaper, cleaned it all up, made sure it was a little bit smoother, but I did no polishing. This was all done with rough sandpaper. There you go. So that gives you kind of a rough idea on how rough it is. I forget the exact grit size, is because the paper has been reduced to this size and I don't see any numbers. So I can't tell you the exact grit. But it's not super rough, but it will sand away metal, a decent amount of metal, if you use it rough enough or hard enough on the chassis. It just removes any of the large bumps, and particularly on the trigger bar. Because the trigger bar has a very large mark over there, can you see? It's still sort of there, but I removed pretty much most of it. So that's basically all I did. Very simple to do. You can do this in about 5 minutes. Now afterwards, this is where the weird part comes in. So you see this area on the slide? I didn't do that. This was actually scratched off the slide due to the front portion over here. So the front portion of the HK45 frame, they have these two areas as some sort of stabilizer for the slide. And this area will actually interfere with how the slide moves. So therefore what I did was that I just took a Dremel tool, quickly grinded that off. There was two areas that actually sticks out. So when I hold it like this, you'll actually be able to see two things that stick out like that, and it will pinch the slide. The second you remove it, the slide can move slowly, smoothly. I mean, not slowly, smoothly. Another thing that you can additionally you can do, which I have not done yet, is you can polish the cocking point. This is very similar to a high cap or a 1911, is because any pistol with an external hammer, you can make the cocking point, reduce it up to a certain point where it will actually go over it a little bit smoother. I opted not to do this is because I want to keep this as stock as possible, and I don't want to modify too much. It's because to me, the detonator slide is more of a collector item. But the gun does work, and it does fire, as you will see in a moment. And the recoil spring is all stock. You can recognize it because this is exactly stock. There's nothing here that has been modified. I don't even have a new hammer spring. This is the stock Tokyo Marui HK45 hammer spring. You can tell because the hammer drops very slowly. So you can see how weak that is. That's due to the stock hammer. And just a heads up warning, if you stipple the rear grip, I highly recommend you to take off the grip and stipple it. If it's the first time that you ever stipple the HK45 grip at the back, this area is where the hammer spring is. So when this structure collapses, it will interfere with the cocking of the hammer. So I recommend you take this off and actually stipple it. In my case, I forgot to do it. That was my mistake, but I'm just letting you guys know that you should do that. Anyways, let's just quickly test it. Okay. So it clearly moves perfectly fine. And that's pretty much it for the barrel, is because I don't want to scratch it any more than it's already scratched. So right off the bat, the barrel is already beginning to scratch. I don't know if you can see that. You can see a little bit. Just a little though. It's not really much, but yeah. That's probably the reason why I built this, just because it's SAI, HK45. You know, it sort of looks pretty cool, in my personal opinion. So anyways, that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. I also have a Facebook page that you can follow me on, in which I'll leave a link in the description box below. Peace, guys. Happy shooting, and thanks for watching.